I refused to give my daughter the credit card after she racked up $23,000 in debt, and she threw a still scalding mug at me. The liquid seared my skin like 1,000 needles stabbing me all at once. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if you, for just a second, feel like this sounds familiar, all I ask is that you share this story. It will help me to keep unburdening my soul. My name is Beatrice Alcantara, though most folks call me Bea. I'm 66 years old, and I live in a small stucco house in the King William Historic District of San Antonio, Texas. My hands, wrinkled from decades of work in the hospital laundry, now hold a mug of chamomile tea that I brew every afternoon at 4 o'clock sharp. It's my ritual, my moment of peace in a life that, until recently, seemed to exist only to meet the needs of others. The March air still holds that crispness that promises the arrival of a Texas spring. From my window, I can see the crepe myrtles in the park starting to show their first pink blossoms, and I hear the familiar rumble of the city buses heading down St. Mary's Street. My house always smells of cinnamon and cloves, spices I use to make the sweet iced tea my late husband Arthur loved so much. That Friday afternoon, when I heard the insistent pounding on my wrought iron screen door, I knew immediately something was wrong. It wasn't the soft, respectful knock of my granddaughters when they come to visit, nor was it the gentle tap of my neighbor Rosa, who always brings over fresh tortillas on the weekends. This was aggressive, desperate, like fists hammering against my peace of mind. Rebecca walked in without waiting for an invitation. My 42-year-old daughter, dressed in those designer clothes I never understood how she could afford on her salary as an office worker at an insurance company. Her hair, always perfectly styled at the most expensive salon in the Pearl District, looked disheveled. Her eyes, which she inherited from her father, looked at me with a mixture of desperation and something that made my skin crawl: contempt. She didn't hug me when she came in. She didn't even say, "Hi, Mom," like I taught her to since she was a little girl. She threw her Italian leather handbag onto my worn-out sofa, that old relic I bought 20 years ago at the Saturday flea market, and plopped down in my favorite armchair as if she owned the place. "I need your card," she said, blunt and without preamble, not even pretending she had come to visit out of affection. "I'm drowning, Mom. It's $23,000 and I have no one else." $23,000. The number hit my stomach like a punch. I clung tighter to my earthenware mug, the one I bought on the river walk years ago during one of those few happy family outings I keep locked in my memory. I felt my hands go cold, shaky, as if I had just received news of a death. "How did you get into so much debt, Rebecca?" I asked, my voice cracking, trying to understand how my daughter, who always bragged about being so smart with money, had ended up in this situation. "Shopping, online courses, investments that didn't pan out. Stuff you wouldn't get," she answered with that condescending tone she had perfected over the years, as if I were a senile old woman incapable of understanding the modern world. "The important thing is I need you to lend me your card. Just for a few months. I'll handle the payments." The air in my small living room grew thick with tension. The wall clock that belonged to my mother ticked away at 5:15. Its steady rhythm the only sound besides my quickening breath and the drumming of my heart, which felt like it was trying to beat its way out of my chest. "Rebecca, I live on my Social Security check. It's barely $900 a month. With that, I pay for electricity, gas, food, my blood pressure medication." She cut me off before I could finish, standing up with a sudden movement that made my potted plants tremble. She strode toward me. With a violence I had never seen in her, she snatched the mug from my hands. "You know what, Mom? Same old story, always with your tales of poverty and sacrifice. But you were quick to help my cousins when they got married, and Aunt Letty when she got sick. Everyone but me. You always find money for everyone else." Her words stabbed me like knives. I remembered myself 3 years ago, selling my wedding ring to help pay for my sister's surgery. I saw myself lending money I didn't have for my nephew's wedding. It hurt to realize that she had interpreted every one of my gestures of family love as a betrayal to her. "I raised you alone, honey," I said, my voice trembling. "Your father left us when you were 8. I put you through college working double shifts at the hospital. I watched your girls while you went on trips with your friends for weeks at a time. It was then that something in her eyes finally broke. She screamed like I had never heard her scream, not even as a teenager when we fought about her late nights out. Because you wanted to be the martyr, the long-suffering mother. But now it's your turn to pay for everything you put me through. And that's when my world stopped. Rebecca raised the mug she had taken from me, the mug full of the boiling chamomile tea I had just made, and threw it at me with all her might. The hot liquid hit my right forearm, searing my skin like burning embers. The pain was instant, sharp, but nothing compared to the pain I felt in my soul seeing the look of pure hatred in my own daughter's eyes. "Useless old woman," she spat, before grabbing her bag and heading for the door. "You're good for nothing. You never were." The door slammed shut with a bang that rattled the glass in my windows. I was left there, alone, my arm burning and my heart shattered, staring at the pieces of ceramic scattered on my living room floor, along with the remains of my relationship with the only daughter I had left in this world. The weekend that followed was the longest and most silent of my life. I sat in my favorite chair, the same one where Rebecca had been just hours before, staring at the damp spot on the rug where the tea had spilled. I didn't clean it. I couldn't. It was as if that stain was the evidence that it had all been real, that my daughter had truly hurt me in that way. My arm throbbed every time I tried to move it. The burn had left a reddish mark the size of a silver dollar, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the emptiness I felt in my chest. I took a cold compress from the freezer, that old appliance Arthur and I bought when we were newlyweds, which now seemed far too big for just one person. I waited. All day Saturday, I waited for the phone to ring, for Rebecca to call and apologize, to explain what had happened, to tell me it had been a moment of desperation, but that she was still my daughter. I waited for my granddaughters, Olivia and Sophia, to call like they did every weekend to ask if they could come over and bake oatmeal cookies, the ones I learned to make from my grandmother Carmen, and that they loved so much. But the phone never rang, not on Saturday, not on Sunday. The silence became deafening. The only sounds were the hum of the refrigerator, the occasional bark of Benito, the neighbor's dog, and the distant pop of fireworks from some block party in the neighborhood. San Antonio always has something to celebrate, but I had nothing but my loneliness. On Sunday morning, while I was preparing my usual pot of pinto beans, I realized I had cooked for 4 people out of habit. For years, Sundays meant Rebecca would come over with the girls for lunch. They'd arrive after church, though I knew Rebecca wasn't very religious anymore. She kept up appearances for the little ones. The girls would run to me shouting, "Grandma B," and fill my house with laughter and mischief. Now there were enough beans to feed a whole family that wasn't coming. I put them in the fridge, even though I knew they'd spoil before I could finish them alone. That same Sunday, I tried to call Rebecca. I dialed her number 3 times. The first time, it went straight to voicemail. The second, it rang once, and then disconnected. The third time, it didn't even ring. She had blocked me. I dialed the girl's landline, the one Rebecca kept for emergencies. Olivia, my 12-year-old granddaughter, answered with that sweet voice that always melted my heart. "Grandma?" she said, with a strange coldness I had never heard from her. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you? I was waiting for you guys yesterday to make cookies." "Mom says we can't come over anymore," she interrupted, her voice so automatic it sounded like she was reading from a script. "She says you hurt her a lot and that you're mean to her." My throat closed up. Mean? I was the mean one? "Olivia, my love, that's not true. Your mom and I had an argument, but I have to go, Grandma. Mom says I'm not allowed to talk to you." And she hung up. My granddaughter, who used to spend hours with me telling me about her friends at middle school, about the boys she liked, about her dreams of becoming a veterinarian, had hung up on me as if I were some annoying stranger. I sat on my kitchen floor and cried like I hadn't cried since Arthur's funeral. I cried for the injustice, for the loneliness, for the fear that my granddaughters would grow up believing their grandmother was a bad person. I cried because I realized Rebecca was capable of using her own children as weapons against me. On Monday, I went to the community health clinic to have the burn checked. Dr. Martinez, a young, kind woman who had treated me before, examined my arm carefully. "Mrs. Alcantara, this is a pretty serious burn. How did this happen?" I was quiet for a moment. How do you tell someone that your own daughter threw boiling tea on you? How do you admit that the person you raised, held in your arms, and protected from all harm, was now the one hurting you? I dropped a mug. I lied, looking down at the clinic's worn linoleum floor. The doctor applied an ointment and bandaged my arm, but I could see in her eyes that she knew I wasn't telling the whole truth. Some wounds scream their origins despite our silence. Take good care of yourself, ma'am. And if you need to talk to someone, we have a counseling service here. When I left the clinic, I decided to stop by the Pearl Farmers Market to buy some vegetables. It was part of my Monday routine, something I'd been doing for decades. Mrs. Rodriguez, who sells the freshest peppers in the whole market, greeted me with her usual smile. "Mrs. B, how are you? I didn't see you at church this weekend." "Oh, I was feeling a little under the weather, Mrs. Rodriguez." "Oh, well, you take care. By the way, I saw your daughter Rebecca on Friday at the shops at La Cantera. She was buying some very expensive handbags in those fancy stores. Looks like she's doing really well for herself." My stomach clenched. Rebecca had been shopping that same day, spending money she didn't have, racking up more debt, while coming to me to complain that I wasn't helping her enough. "Yes, she's doing well," I replied automatically, because that's what a mother is supposed to say about her daughter, even if she's no longer sure she knows the person she's become. That night, as I ate my leftover beans with tortillas that were already a bit stiff, I reflected on all the sacrifices I had made over the years. I remembered the nights I came home from the hospital with swollen feet and still had to help Rebecca with her math homework. The times I sold my few pieces of jewelry to pay for her English classes because she said it was important for her future. The years I didn't buy a single new dress for myself because all my money went to her school uniforms, her books, her teenage whims. I remembered when she got pregnant with Olivia at 24, unmarried, and how I supported her without judgment, how I went with her to all her doctor's appointments, how I cared for her postpartum, how I took charge of the baby for the first few months so she could rest. I did the same 4 years later when Sophia was born. I had spent the last 18 years being more of a grandmother than a mother, raising her children when she went out partying, when she had work commitments that lasted all weekend, when she decided she needed time for herself and would disappear for days, leaving me in charge of 2 small girls. And now, for the first time in my life, when I had said no to her, when I had explained that I didn't have the resources to get her out of her financial mess, she had physically assaulted me and threatened to take my granddaughters away. I went to bed with a question that burned more than the wound on my arm. At what point had my daughter stopped seeing me as her mother and started seeing me only as her personal bank? On Tuesday morning, as I was watering my geraniums in the small backyard, I heard my phone ringing from the kitchen. I ran, thinking maybe it was Rebecca, that she had thought things over and was calling to apologize. But it was my sister, Gloria, who lives in Austin and only calls when something is very wrong. "B, what's going on with you and Rebecca?" she asked, without even a hello, in that reproachful tone she'd perfected since we were kids. "What did she tell you?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "She called me last night crying. She says you won't help her with her financial problems, that you're being very selfish, that she has huge debts and you refuse to give her your card. Oh, B, after everything that girl has done for you." I sat down on a kitchen chair, feeling my world tilting even more. Rebecca had called the family to tell them her side of the story, but she had obviously left out the part where she threw boiling tea at me and insulted me. "Gloria, things aren't how she told you. Look, don't give me excuses. That girl has sacrificed so much for you. She takes you to the doctor, brings you groceries, makes sure you have everything you need. And now that she needs help, you turn your back on her? She doesn't take me to the doctor, Gloria. I go by myself on the bus, and I do my own grocery shopping too. Don't be a liar, B. Everyone knows what a good daughter Rebecca is to you." I hung up the phone with a lump in my throat. My own sister was scolding me based on lies Rebecca had made up. Since when had my daughter been telling the family she took care of me? Since when had she created this false narrative where I was the dependent one, and she was the long-suffering caregiver? Half an hour later, the phone rang again. It was my sister-in-law, Rose, my brother Matthew's wife. "B, I'm so sorry to talk about this, but Rebecca told us what happened. Matthew and I think you should reconsider." Our children are the most important thing we have, and she really needs you. Rose, you don't know the whole story. I know that debt can ruin a family, B. And I know you have your savings. Don't be stingy with your own flesh and blood. Stingy? The word hit me like a slap. Me? Stingy? I, who had worked until my hands were raw to give my daughter everything? I, who had lived on the bare minimum so she would never want for anything? That afternoon, when I went to Mr. Joaquin's corner store to buy milk, I noticed he was looking at me strangely. Mrs. B, is everything all right at home? Yes, Mr. Joaquin. Why do you ask? Well, last night my wife saw on Facebook that your daughter wrote something about family problems. Something about you not wanting to help her. My stomach twisted into a knot. Rebecca had put our problems on social media. She had exposed our private business for the whole neighborhood to gossip about. When I got home, I asked my neighbor Rosa to help me check Facebook on her phone, because I never learned how to use those modern things. What I saw shattered my soul. Rebecca had posted a picture of herself with the girls, smiling, with a caption that read, "It's so sad when your own family turns their back on you in your darkest hour. When the people who should support you would rather spend money on their own whims while they watch their children suffer. But God sees everything and rewards those who fight to get ahead. My daughters and I will keep moving forward, no matter who abandons us." The post had 43 likes and 22 comments. I read them all. They were from family, neighbors, co-workers, all expressing their support and criticizing that selfish person who wouldn't help a hard-working mother in need. What a lack of heart from her family, my cousin Letty had written. Parents should always be there for their kids, commented a woman I didn't know. Poor thing, how unfair, wrote Rebecca's godmother. None of them knew I had a burn on my arm because of their poor thing. None of them knew Rebecca had spent $23,000 on frivolous shopping while demanding money I didn't have. None of them knew she had insulted and assaulted me in my own home. "Oh, Mrs. B," said Rosa, who had been reading the horror on my face. "This girl is trying to turn people against you." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the Facebook comments, heard the scolding voices of my relatives, remembered the coldness in Olivia's voice when she told me she couldn't talk to me. My own daughter had orchestrated a campaign to make me the villain of the story. On Wednesday morning, I received a call that finally broke me. It was my granddaughter Sophia, the youngest, only 8 years old. "Grandma?" she said in a tiny, trembling voice. "My love, how are you, my princess?" "Grandma? Is it true you don't love me anymore?" My heart broke into a million pieces. How could my granddaughter ask me that? The little girl who had been my reason for living for the last few years. "Who told you that, sweetie?" "Mom says you've gotten really mean, that you don't want to help us anymore, that you love your money more than us." "Sophia, my love, that's not true. I love you girls more than my own life." "Then why won't you help Mom?" "She cries a lot at night. She says some very bad men are going to come take our house away if she doesn't give them money." My breath hitched. Rebecca had dragged the girls into this. She had told them they might lose their home. She was using them to emotionally blackmail me. "Princess, grown-up things are complicated, but I want you to know that I will always love you." "I have to go, Grandma. Mom says if she hears me talking to you, she'll ground me." And she hung up, leaving me with the phone in my hand and tears streaming down my cheeks. That afternoon, as I was making some chamomile tea to calm my nerves, I saw an elegant car pull up to the house across the street. It was Rebecca visiting Mrs. Rodriguez, my neighbor. I watched them talk in the yard for over an hour, Rebecca gesturing dramatically, occasionally pointing toward my house. When Rebecca left, Mrs. Rodriguez came over to my gate, a look of pity on her face. "Oh, Mrs. B, your daughter told me what's going on. What a difficult situation. What did she tell you?" "That you've become very odd lately, very bitter. That you won't help her when she needs it most. She told me she's very worried about you, that she thinks you need medical help, that maybe you're starting to have memory problems or something." I froze. Rebecca wasn't just making me out to be selfish. She was suggesting I was mentally unstable. She was planting the idea that I wasn't in my right mind, preparing the ground so no one would believe my side of the story. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I am perfectly fine." "Of course, Mrs. B. You've always been such a sharp woman, But you know how children are. They worry so much about their parents. Maybe you should talk to her. Make peace. That night, sitting in my empty living room, staring at the stain on the rug I still hadn't cleaned, I realized that Rebecca had executed a perfect plan. She had isolated me from my family, turned my granddaughters against me, tarnished my reputation in the neighborhood, and was now sowing doubts about my mental stability, all because I refused to give her a credit card to pay for her shopping debts. For the first time in my life, I understood that my own daughter saw me as an enemy to be defeated, not a mother to be respected. On Thursday morning, I woke up with a stabbing pain in my chest that had nothing to do with my heart condition. It was the pain of betrayal, of injustice, of feeling completely alone in a world where my own daughter had managed to turn me into the villain of a story she had written herself. As I was making my cinnamon-spiced coffee, just as I had every morning for 40 years, the doorbell rang. For a moment, my heart leaped, hoping it was Rebecca, that she had come to apologize, to explain that it had all been a terrible misunderstanding. But when I opened the door, I was met by the serious face of my niece, Patricia, my sister Gloria's daughter. "Aunt Bea, we need to talk," she said without a greeting, gently pushing the door open to enter. Patricia was a lawyer, a successful 35-year-old woman who had always been the sensible one in the family. If she had driven all the way to San Antonio from Austin, something very serious was happening. "Coffee, sweetheart?" "No, Auntie. Please, sit down." Her formal tone made me nervous. She sat across from me on the sofa, took out her cell phone, and showed me the screen. "Auntie, did you see what Rebecca posted on Facebook yesterday?" On the screen was another post from my daughter. This time it was a picture of me taken last year at a family gathering, but edited to make me look older and more haggard. The text read, "It's so painful to watch how age and bitterness can change the people we love. My mother isn't the same person she used to be. She's become very hard-hearted, and I think she needs professional help. I'll keep fighting to provide for my daughters alone, but I ask for prayers for my mom's mental health." "Patricia, this is not—" "Wait, Auntie. There's more." She showed me the comments. There were over 60. People were expressing their sorrow for my illness, suggesting nursing homes, talking about how hard it must be for Rebecca to deal with a mother with problems. "Aunt Bea?" My mom called me, very worried. She said Rebecca told her you've changed a lot, that you're acting strangely, refusing to help her, and that she thinks you're losing the ability to make sound decisions. I was speechless. My daughter hadn't just invented a false version of our conflict. She was publicly suggesting I had dementia or some kind of mental illness. "Patricia, I am perfectly fine. Your cousin is the one with problems. She demanded my credit card to pay off $23,000 in debt, and when I told her I didn't have that kind of money, she attacked me." I rolled up my sleeve to show her the burn on my arm. Patricia leaned in and examined the wound, her face a mask of horror. "Rebecca did this to you? She threw a mug of boiling tea at me. She insulted me, screamed at me, and threatened to keep me from seeing my granddaughters." Patricia was quiet for a long moment, processing what I had just told her. "Auntie, this is very serious. This is physical assault. Why didn't you tell us?" "Because nobody would have believed me. Look how the whole family has already taken her side without even hearing my version. Aunt Bea, you need to report this. And you need to protect yourself. If Rebecca is willing to physically harm you and destroy your reputation, what else is she capable of?" That afternoon, Patricia took me to the hospital to have my injury officially documented. The doctor who saw me, an older man with a kind face, examined the burn and dictated his observations to a nurse. Second-degree burn on the right forearm, consistent with hot liquid. The lesion is approximately 5 days old. Splatter pattern suggests the liquid was thrown from a distance. "Doctor, does that mean you can determine it wasn't an accident?" Patricia asked. "Accidental scalds usually have a different pattern. This injury is consistent with an assault." We left the hospital with an official medical report and recommendations for treatment. Patricia insisted we go straight to the district attorney's office to file a report, but I wasn't ready for that step. "Auntie, I understand she's your daughter, but you can't let this go." "Let me think, Patricia. Just give me a few days. Maybe Rebecca will come to her senses and we can sort this out as a family." but my niece had seen something in Rebecca's eyes at family gatherings that I had refused to acknowledge. Aunt B, with all due respect, I don't think you're seeing Rebecca for who she really is. This isn't the reaction of someone who is desperate. This is calculated, manipulative. The way she's using social media, involving the whole family, using her own daughters. This isn't normal. That night, alone in my house, I thought about Patricia's words. How long had Rebecca been seeing me not as her mother, but as an obstacle to her plans? I remembered last year, when she had insisted I put her name on my savings account, just in case something happened to me. I remembered how she had tried to convince me to sell my house and move into a smaller apartment where she could take better care of me. I remembered all the times she had criticized my unnecessary expenses on things as basic as my blood pressure medication or the plants in my yard. On Friday morning, as I was eating my scrambled eggs with a warm bread roll from Mr. Roberto's bakery, I heard insistent knocking at the door. This time, I recognized the pattern immediately. It was Rebecca again. I opened the door with my heart pounding, expecting the same aggressive Rebecca from a few days ago. But the woman standing on my porch was completely different. She wore a modest dress, her eyes were swollen as if she'd been crying, and she was holding a box of pastries from the most expensive bakery in the Pearl. "Mom," she said in a broken voice, "I've come to ask for your forgiveness." She looked so fragile, so repentant, that for a moment all my defenses crumbled. She was my little girl again, the one who used to hide in my arms when she had nightmares. "Come in, honey." She sat in the same spot she had 5 days before, but her posture was completely different. She leaned forward, clasped her hands as if in prayer, and looked at me with those eyes she'd inherited from her father. "Mom, I don't know what came over me. I was so desperate, so scared about the debts. I wasn't thinking straight. I didn't mean to hurt you. When I saw what I did to your arm, I couldn't sleep. I've been crying for days." Her performance was flawless. If I hadn't seen her Facebook posts, if Patricia hadn't shown me how she had manipulated the entire family, I would have believed every word. "Rebecca, what you did hurt me very much. And it hurt even more that you involved the girls. I know, Mom. It was wrong. The girls miss you so much. Sophia cries for you every night." A but was coming. I could feel it in the air, like the humidity before a storm. "Mom, I've been thinking about a solution for all our problems." There it was. The real reason for her visit. "What solution?" "Well, I know you don't have $23,000 in cash, but you could get it. You have this house, which is worth a lot of money. You could take out a home equity loan. I would make the payments, of course. That way you help me without having to use your own money." My blood ran cold. She didn't just want me to go into debt for her whims, she wanted me to put my house up as collateral. If she didn't pay, I would lose the only asset I had. The home where I had lived with Arthur, where I had raised my children, where I planned to live out my days in peace. "Rebecca, this house is all I have. Mom, nothing's going to happen. I'll make every payment on time. It's just a family loan. Besides, think about it. If you help me with this, I can keep taking care of you. But if you don't," the unfinished threat hung in the air between us. "If I don't?" "What?" "Well, Mom, I think you need help. Patricia told me she saw you yesterday and you seemed very confused. Maybe you need someone to make decisions for you. For your own good." My heart started beating so hard I thought it would burst. Rebecca hadn't come to apologize. She had come to blackmail me with a new strategy. If I didn't agree to mortgage my house, she would continue to convince the family I was mentally unstable until she could get some kind of legal guardianship over me. "Rebecca, my mind is perfectly fine." "Of course, Mom, but you know how people are. If you keep acting so strange, they're going to get more worried." I looked her straight in the eye, and for the first time in my life, I saw Rebecca for who she truly was. She wasn't my lost little girl who had made a mistake. She was a predator who had identified her prey and was willing to destroy me completely to get what she wanted. "I need time to think about it," I told her. "Of course, Mom, but don't take too long. The interest on my debts keeps piling up." She stood, gave me a kiss on the forehead that felt like ice, and walked to the door. "Oh, and Mom, it would be better if you didn't talk about our private business with Patricia or anyone else." The family is already worried enough about you." When she left, I sat in my living room trembling. My daughter had given me an ultimatum. Either I put my house at risk to pay her debts, or she would continue to destroy my reputation until she gained legal control over my life. For the first time, I understood I wasn't dealing with normal family problems. I was a victim of financial and psychological abuse at the hands of my own daughter. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I stayed up until 4 in the morning, sitting in the wicker rocking chair Arthur had given me for our 20th anniversary, thinking about Rebecca's words. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face when she delivered her veiled threat. That cold, calculating expression I had never seen on her before. Or maybe I had, but had refused to recognize it. Saturday dawned gray and rainy, as if the sky mirrored my mood. I decided I needed to get out of the house, to breathe fresh air, to clear my head. I put on my navy blue shawl, the one my sister had knitted for me years ago, and walked to the historic market square to buy some vegetables and have coffee at my favorite stand. Mrs. Rodriguez, who makes the best breakfast tacos in the whole market, greeted me with her usual smile, but I noticed something different in her eyes. "Good morning, Mrs. B. How are you feeling?" "Fine, Mrs. Rodriguez." "2 bean and cheese tacos, please." As she prepared my order, she leaned in with that expression women get when we're about to broach a delicate subject. "Mrs. B, forgive me for sticking my nose where it doesn't belong, but your daughter Rebecca was here at the market yesterday. She was asking several of the vendors about you." A knot formed in my stomach. What was she asking? Well, if we had noticed you acting differently lately, if you seemed strange when you came to shop, if you were forgetting things or seemed confused. My breathing quickened. Rebecca had been in my market, my sanctuary, planting seeds of doubt about my mental state among people who had known me for decades. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I am perfectly fine." "Oh, of course you are, Mrs. Bay. You've always been so sharp, so smart. That's why I found it odd that your daughter was asking those things. I told her you're one of the most level-headed customers I have." "What else did she say?" "Just that she was very worried about you, that she thought you needed help. But it sounded strange to me, because you've never shown any sign of trouble. Besides, Don Chucho, from the fruit stand, told me your daughter seemed more interested in getting people to say they had noticed something strange about you than in hearing that you were fine." I finished my breakfast with a bitter taste in my mouth that had nothing to do with the coffee. Rebecca was executing a systematic plan to make everyone believe I had mental problems. It wasn't just family manipulation. It was an organized campaign to destroy my credibility. When I returned home, I found my neighbor Rosa waiting for me at my door, a worried look on her face. "Mrs. Bay, I need to tell you something important." "Come in, Rosa. What happened?" "Yesterday afternoon around 5, your daughter showed up with a man I didn't recognize. An older man, well-dressed, with a folder under his arm. They were looking at your house from the outside, taking pictures, measuring things. My heart began to pound so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Pictures of what? Of the facade, the yard, the size of the lot. The man was writing things down on some papers. It looked like a property appraisal. Did you hear anything they were saying?" "Not everything, but I did hear your daughter tell the man that the house was in very good condition, that it was worth a lot of money, and that it would soon be available for some kind of transaction." I sat down heavily in my chair. Rebecca was already having my house appraised. She had probably contacted a professional appraiser to find out exactly how much money she could get from it, either by mortgaging it or selling it. "Rosa, did the man give Rebecca a business card or anything?" "Yes. At the end, he handed her some papers and a card. They left together in his car. That evening, as I tried to process all this, my phone rang. It was my granddaughter Olivia. "Grandma? Sweetheart, how are you?" "Grandma, I have to tell you something, but you can't tell Mom I called you." Her voice sounded scared, like she was doing something forbidden. "Tell me, Princess." "Yesterday, I heard Mom on the phone with someone. She was saying that you can't take care of yourself anymore, that you need someone to make decisions for you, and that she's going to have to take charge of your things to protect you." "What else did you hear?" "She said you're going to have to go live somewhere else, a place where they take care of grandparents who are sick, and that the house is going to be sold to pay for your care." My world collapsed. Rebecca was already talking about putting me in a nursing home and selling my house. It all connected. The campaign to make me seem mentally incompetent, the property appraisal, the veiled threats about my needing help. Grandma, is your head sick? No, my love. I'm perfectly fine. Then why is Mom saying those things? It's grown-up stuff, Princess. Very complicated. Grandma, I don't want you to go to a nursing home. I want you to stay in your house, and I want to keep coming over to make cookies with you. I want that too, my love. Sophia and I miss you so much. Mom told us we can't visit you because you're very sick and you might hurt us, but you don't sound sick. I'm not sick, Olivia, but it's very important that you don't tell your mom you talked to me, okay? Okay, Grandma. I love you. I love you too, my princess. When I hung up, I just sat there, shaking with rage and helplessness. Rebecca was using my own granddaughters as pawns in her scheme to take everything I had. She was telling them I was sick and dangerous, while she plotted to have me committed and sell my home. On Sunday morning, I decided I needed professional help. I called Patricia and asked her to come see me urgently. Auntie, you look very shaken. What happened? I told her everything. Rebecca's visit with the appraiser, the questions at the market, Olivia's call about the plans to put me in a home. Aunt B, this isn't just family abuse anymore. Your daughter is planning fraud. She's creating the conditions to have you declared mentally incompetent, so she can get legal guardianship over your assets. Is that possible? Unfortunately, yes. If she manages to gather enough testimony that you're mentally incapacitated, she can petition a judge to declare you incompetent. That would give her total control over your financial and personal decisions. But I'm fine, Patricia. Any doctor can confirm that. I know, Auntie. But the legal process can be slow, and in the meantime, Rebecca can keep doing damage. We need to act fast. That afternoon, we went together to a family law specialist Patricia knew. Mr. Morales, a serious man in his 50s, listened to my story attentively and reviewed all the documents we had gathered. The medical report on my burn, screenshots of the Facebook posts, Rosa's written testimony about the appraiser's visit. Mrs. Alcantara, this is very serious. Your daughter is executing a systematic plan to appropriate your assets. What you're describing is aggravated financial abuse and domestic violence. What can I do? First, we need to protect your assets immediately. We'll file for a protective order so that no transactions can be made on your house without your express consent. Second, we will file a criminal complaint for the physical assault and attempted fraud. Third, we will request an official psychological and psychiatric evaluation to prove your full mental capacity. And my granddaughters? Once we prove that your daughter's accusations are false, we can petition for a visitation schedule that she cannot deny. The right of grandparents to see their grandchildren is protected by law. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. I wasn't helpless. I had rights, and there were people willing to help me defend them. That night, as I prepared my usual dinner of vegetable soup and warm tortillas, I reflected on everything that had happened. Rebecca had underestimated her mother. She had believed that my age and my love for her made me an easy victim, but she had made a mistake. She had hurt the wrong people and left a trail of evidence of all her plans. For the first time since this all began, I felt strong. I was no longer just a grieving mother. I was a woman who was going to fight for her dignity and her home. On Monday, my counterattack would begin. On Monday morning, I woke with a determination I hadn't felt in years. For the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't lie in bed replaying Rebecca's offenses in my head. I got up, took a hot shower, put on my favorite navy blue dress, the one Arthur used to say made me look elegant, and ate my eggs and beans with a healthy appetite. At 9 o'clock sharp, Patricia arrived in her car to take me to the bank. We had agreed that the first thing we would do was protect my accounts and make sure no one else could access them. At the bank, the teller who helped me, a young woman named Isabel, reviewed my file carefully. Mrs. Alcantara, I see that your daughter Rebecca is listed as an authorized user on your savings account. Do you wish to make any changes? My heart sped up. I didn't remember authorizing that. When was that authorization registered? Isabel checked her computer. 8 months ago. According to our records, you came in with your daughter and signed the documents authorizing her to make transactions on your account in case of an emergency. I vaguely recalled the visit. Rebecca had told me it was important to have someone authorized, just in case something happened to me. I had signed without reading the documents carefully, trusting it was just a precaution. I want to revoke that authorization immediately. And I want to review all transactions on my account from the last 8 months. What we discovered left me breathless. Rebecca had made 12 withdrawals from my account over the last few months, always for amounts that weren't large enough for me to notice right away. $25 here, $50 there, another $40 later. In total, she had taken nearly $1,000 from my savings. Is it possible to recover that money? Patricia asked. If you file a police report for fraudulent use, it's possible. But you'll need to prove the withdrawals were not authorized by Mrs. Alcantara. The withdrawals were not authorized, I said, my voice firm. I never gave her permission to take money from my account. Isabel provided us with a detailed statement and copies of all the authorizations. She also immediately revoked Rebecca's access to my account and changed all my security codes. After the bank, we went directly to the district attorney's office. The assistant DA who took our case, a man named Mr. Vega, listened to my testimony while a secretary transcribed it word for word. Mrs. Alcantara, in addition to the physical assault, what you're describing constitutes financial abuse and possible fraud. Are you willing to press criminal charges against your daughter? The question pained me to my core. I never thought the day would come when I would have to decide whether to send my own daughter to jail. Sir, I'm not looking for revenge. I just want my money back, for her to stop lying about my mental state, and to be allowed to see my granddaughters. I understand your feelings, ma'am, but I'm afraid your daughter is not going to cooperate voluntarily. The documents you've shown me suggest she's planning something much more serious. If we don't act now, it could be too late. Patricia took my hand. Auntie, this isn't just about you. If Rebecca is capable of doing this to her own mother, what will she be capable of doing to her daughters when they're older and have something she wants? Those words made up my mind. This wasn't just about protecting me. It was about protecting my granddaughters from the monster their mother had become. Yes, sir. I'll press charges. Mr. Vega explained that the process would take time, but that we could request immediate protective measures. He also recommended I get a full psychological evaluation to have official documentation of my mental state. That afternoon, we went to a well-regarded psychiatric clinic, where a doctor named Maria Elena Sanchez put me through a battery of cognitive and psychological tests. For 3 hours, I answered questions, solved problems, recalled number sequences, and identified patterns. Mrs. Alcantara, the doctor said at the end, your results are well above average for your age group. There is zero evidence of cognitive decline, dementia, or any other mental issue that would impair your decision-making capacity. Can you give me that in writing? Of course. I'll provide you with a full report that you can use legally to demonstrate your full mental capacity. When I got home that night, I was exhausted but victorious. For the first time in weeks, I had taken control of my situation. I had protected my accounts, pressed charges against Rebecca, and obtained official proof that I was completely sane. But my feeling of triumph was short-lived. The next day, when I went to the market to buy vegetables, Mrs. Rodriguez greeted me with a worried look. Mrs. B, your daughter came by again yesterday afternoon, but this time she brought the girls. My granddaughters? What did they want? Your daughter told the girls to ask people if they had noticed you acting strangely. The poor things went from stall to stall asking if their grandmother seemed sick. My heart broke. Rebecca was using Olivia and Sophia to collect false testimony about my mental state. What did the girls say? Well, the poor dears looked so confused. Sophia, the little one, asked Don Chucho if it was true that you were going crazy. Don Chucho told her no, that you'd always been very normal. But the girl started crying and said her mommy told her you were very sick, and that's why they couldn't visit you. And Olivia? The older one looked very uncomfortable. When her mother wasn't looking, she came up to me and asked in a whisper if I thought you needed to be in a hospital. I told her no, that you were perfectly fine, and she said, it's just that Mom says Grandma is really sick, but when I talk to her on the phone, she sounds normal. Rebecca was psychologically torturing my granddaughters, filling them with doubts and fears about me, forcing them to participate in her smear campaign. That night, I called Patricia and told her what had happened. Auntie, this is child abuse. She is emotionally manipulating her own daughters to use them against you. What can I do? We'll add this to the police report. Child Protective Services can intervene if there's evidence she's causing psychological harm to the minors. On Wednesday morning, as I was watering my plants in the yard, I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it, Rebecca was standing there, but it was no longer the repentant Rebecca from the week before. Her true face had returned, cold, calculating, and menacing. Mom, we need to talk. I have nothing to talk to you about, Rebecca. Oh, yes, you do. I found out you went to the bank, that you revoked my access, that you went to the DA's office. You think you can win by playing dirty? Her tone was so cold it sent shivers down my spine. I'm not playing dirty. I'm defending myself from your abuse. Abuse? She laughed, a humorless sound. Mom, you have no idea what abuse is, but you're about to find out. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you. I've already spoken with Mr. Herrera, a lawyer who specializes in conservatorship cases. I showed him all the evidence of your mental decline. The testimony from the family, the posts where you act irrationally, the videos I have of you behaving erratically. What videos? The ones I recorded the last time I was here. When you got aggressive with me, when you started screaming for no reason. Very convenient for proving your mental state. I froze. Rebecca had recorded me without my knowledge during our last conversation. She had probably edited the video to make it look like I was the aggressor. Mom, I'm going to give you one last chance. Tomorrow you come with me to the bank, you take out the home equity loan, you give me the money and we forget this whole thing. The girls can keep visiting you. The family can go on thinking you're a normal grandmother, and we all live happily ever after. And if I don't? If you don't, my lawyer files the conservatorship petition tomorrow. With all the videos, testimony, and evidence I have, you will be declared mentally incompetent. You'll lose control of all your assets. You'll be put in a nursing home, and I'll be your legal guardian. She looked me straight in the eyes with a coldness that made my skin crawl. And when that happens, I'm going to sell this house, use all your money to pay off my debts, and you're going to rot in the cheapest nursing home I can find. Because that's what you deserve for being so selfish. Rebecca, I am your mother. You are an obstacle. And tomorrow, I'm removing that obstacle for good. She turned and walked away, leaving me standing in my doorway, trembling with terror and rage. My own daughter had just declared all-out war on me, but she had made a fatal mistake. She had revealed her entire plan. Now I knew exactly what I had to do to fight back. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. But not from fear, from rage. A cold, calculated rage I had never felt in my 66 years. Rebecca had made the mistake of showing me all her cards, of revealing exactly what she planned to do to me. She thought her mother was a helpless old woman who would be intimidated by her threats. She was completely wrong. At 6 a.m, I was already up, showered, and dressed in my best outfit. My gray pantsuit that I had bought for Arthur's funeral and only wore on very important occasions. I put my hair up in a neat bun, wore my pearl earrings, and put on my makeup carefully. If I was going to face my daughter in what would be our final battle, I would do it with all the dignity she had tried to strip from me. At 7 o'clock, I called Patricia. Honey, I need you to come and get me. Today, we are going to end this, once and for all. What happened, Auntie? I told her, word for word, the conversation I'd had with Rebecca, including her threat to have me committed and sell my house. Aunt B, what you're telling me is extremely serious. That's extortion and making threats. We need to record all of this. Exactly what I was thinking. Do you think you can get some recording equipment? I have a tiny digital recorder I use for depositions. It's the size of a quarter and records in excellent quality. At 9 a.m, Patricia arrived with the recording device and Mr. Morales, my lawyer. The three of us planned the strategy. I would call Rebecca and tell her I had reconsidered her proposal and wanted to meet with her to discuss the terms of the home equity loan. The meeting would be at my house, where we would have full control of the situation. Mrs. Alcantara, Mr. Morales told me, it is very important that you let her talk. Let her explain her plans herself. Let her repeat her threats. The more specific she is about what she plans to do with your house and your money, the better our evidence will be. Patricia clipped the recorder to my pearl necklace, completely invisible, and we tested that it worked correctly. She also positioned her cell phone in video recording mode behind my bookshelf, focused on the sofa where Rebecca would sit. Auntie, you are not alone in this. We're going to be outside, in the car across the street. If anything goes wrong, if you feel threatened, just tap on the window and we'll come in immediately. At 2 p.m, I dialed Rebecca's number. She answered on the first ring, as if she had been waiting for my call. Have you thought things over, Mom? Yes, Rebecca. I think you're right. I need help managing my finances, and maybe it's better if you take charge. I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. I'm so glad you've come to your senses. When do you want to go to the bank? I'd rather we talk it over properly first. Can you come to the house? I want to understand exactly how the loan will work. Of course. I'm on my way. Half an hour later, Rebecca arrived at my house with a folder full of documents and a completely different attitude. She looked relaxed, confident, like a predator that knows it has already trapped its prey. Mom, I'm so glad to see you finally understand the situation. She sat on the sofa, exactly where we had planned, and opened her folder with efficient, calculated movements. Look, I already have all the paperwork ready. Mr. Herrera helped me prepare it. You just need to sign here, here, and here, and we can go to the bank tomorrow to process the loan. I reviewed the documents carefully. They weren't just papers for a home equity loan. There were power of attorney documents that would give her total control over my assets, authorizations to sell the house, and even forms to have me admitted to a geriatric facility. Rebecca, these papers aren't just for a loan. This one says you're giving me power of attorney to sell my house. Well, Mom, it's a precaution. If something happens to you, if your mental health deteriorates further, I need to have the legal authority to make decisions for you. My mental health is going to deteriorate further? Rebecca looked at me with that condescending expression she had perfected over the years. Mom, let's be honest. You've already shown clear signs of confusion, of irrational behavior. Last week, you got aggressive with me for no reason. Yesterday, you went to the bank to revoke my access, as if I were your enemy instead of your daughter who's trying to help you. And what happens if I sign these papers? Nothing, Mom. I'll simply take over managing your resources more efficiently. You'll continue to live here as long as possible, but when the time comes that you can no longer care for yourself, I'll be prepared to get you the best possible care. And if I don't want to sign? The mask of kindness fell away immediately. Her face hardened, and her eyes turned as cold as ice. Mom, I'm not asking if you want to. I'm informing you what's going to happen. If you sign these papers now, everything will be handled in a civilized manner. If you don't sign them, my lawyer files the conservatorship petition tomorrow morning. Conservatorship petition? To declare you mentally incompetent, Mom. I have videos of you behaving aggressively and irrationally. I have testimony from family members confirming your mental decline. I have evidence that you've made irresponsible financial decisions. Any judge will determine that you need a legal guardian. She leaned forward, bringing her face close to mine with an expression that sent a chill down my spine. And when that happens, I will be your guardian. I will have total control over your money, your house, your life. And the first thing I'm going to do is sell this house to pay off my debts. And where will I live? In the cheapest nursing home I can find, hopefully one where they don't mistreat you too much. She paused, savoring my expression of horror. Of course, the girls won't be able to visit you. I'll tell them you became very dangerous, that you could hurt them. They'll grow up thinking their grandmother was a violent, crazy woman who ended her days locked away for her own good. Rebecca, I'm your mother. You're a useless old woman who is no longer of any use to me. Her voice filled with a venom I had never heard before. For years I put up with you, pretended I loved you, endured your boring stories and your martyr act. But now you have something I need, and I'm going to take it, with or without your cooperation. She leaned back on the sofa with a cruel smile. You know what I find most amusing about all this? That even to the last moment, you still believe you're my loving mother. You were never more than a means to get what I wanted. When I was a child, you gave me food and shelter. When I was a teenager, you paid for my college. When I had the girls, you served as my free babysitter. And now, you're going to give me your house and your money. You never loved me? Love is a strong word, Mom. I tolerated you as long as you were useful, but now that you're old and sick, you have nothing left to offer me except your assets. She took a pen from her purse and placed it on the documents. So you decide, sign now, or tomorrow, I begin the legal process that will end in exactly the same way, but with much more suffering for you. And if I sign them? If you sign, I'll let you live here for 6 more months while I handle the sale of the house. Then I'll find you a room in some decent nursing home, where you can live out your final years without bothering anyone. She looked at me with absolute contempt. Of course the girls won't know anything about this. I'll tell them you decided to move to a place where they could take better care of you, because you couldn't manage on your own anymore. They'll grow up remembering you as a grandmother, who abandoned them when they needed you most. She stood up from the sofa and walked to the window, turning her back to me with an arrogance that took my breath away. You know what's most pathetic about all this, Mom? That even now, after everything I've said to you, you're still hoping that at some point I'll remember you're my mother and feel remorse. But it's not going to happen. To me, you're already dead. You're just an obstacle between me and what I need. She turned around and looked at me with eyes completely empty of any human emotion. So sign the papers, Mom, or prepare for a war, because I assure you, it's a war you can't win. At that moment, for the first time in this whole nightmare, I smiled. A calm, serene smile, full of the satisfaction of someone who has just heard exactly what they needed to hear. I'm not signing anything, Rebecca. Then you're going to regret that decision for the rest of your miserable life. No, my dear. The one who's going to regret this is you. I rose from my chair with a dignity I hadn't felt in weeks, walked to the window, and tapped the glass 3 times. Because everything you just said has been recorded. Rebecca's face changed so quickly that for a moment I thought she was going to faint. All the color drained from her face, her eyes went wide as saucers, and her mouth hung open, unable to form words. The arrogant confidence she had displayed throughout our conversation evaporated like smoke. What? What did you say? At that moment, the door opened, and Patricia and Mr. Morales walked in. Patricia was holding a recorder in her hand, while the lawyer carried a folder full of legal documents. "Good afternoon, Rebecca," said Mr. Morales with a formality that cut through the air. "I'm Mr. Morales, your mother's attorney, and you have just confessed to multiple felonies in front of witnesses and with recorded evidence." Rebecca jumped to her feet so fast she nearly fell, her folder of fraudulent documents scattering across the floor. This is a setup. You can't record someone without their consent." "Actually, we can," Patricia replied with a calm that contrasted sharply with Rebecca's desperation. "In Texas, recordings are legal under one-party consent, and that's exactly what we've just done." Mr. Morales approached Rebecca with measured steps. "Ms. Alcantara, over the last 30 minutes, you have confessed to the following crimes: extortion, making threats, fraud, financial abuse of an elder, domestic violence, and conspiracy to unlawfully deprive your mother of her liberty through forced commitment." "That's not true," Rebecca shouted, but her voice sounded desperate like a cornered animal. "I was just trying to help my mother. She's sick. She can't make decisions." "Sick?" I interjected, feeling a satisfaction I never thought I would feel confronting my own daughter. "On Tuesday, I had a full psychological evaluation at a top clinic. The results confirmed that I am in full possession of my mental faculties, well above average for my age." Patricia took the official report from her bag and showed it to Rebecca. "We also have evidence of all the unauthorized withdrawals you made from your mother's account. Nearly $1,000 in 8 months. That's called theft." "I had authorization." "An authorization you obtained through deceit," Mr. Morales replied. "Your mother signed those documents believing they were for emergencies, not for you to systematically steal money." Rebecca began to pace my living room like a caged animal. Her calculated, controlled demeanor had completely vanished, replaced by a frightening desperation. "You don't understand. I need that money. I have debts. I have problems. You have $23,000 in debt from unnecessary shopping," I interrupted her. "That's not my problem, Rebecca. It's yours. You're my mother. You're supposed to help me, For the first time in this whole nightmare, I laughed. A genuine, liberating laugh. Help you? I raised you alone when your father abandoned us. I put you through college working double shifts. I cared for your daughters when you disappeared for weeks. I lent you money you never paid back. I gave you my home as a refuge when you were in trouble. For 42 years, I have done everything for you. And when I finally say no to something, you assault me, steal from me, threaten me, and plan to have me committed. I walked up to her and looked her directly in the eye. No, Rebecca, I am not your mother anymore. Not after what you've done to me. Mr. Morales opened his folder and took out several official documents. Ms. Alcantara, I have here a restraining order, civil and criminal complaints, and an urgent request for a lien on all your assets to ensure the restitution of the stolen money. A lien? Your wages will be garnished until you return every dollar you stole from your mother's account. Your bank accounts, your car, and any other assets you possess will also be frozen. Patricia stepped forward and handed her an official envelope. You are also prohibited from coming within 500 yards of your mother, this house, or any place she may be. If you violate this restraining order, you go directly to jail. And my daughters? What's going to happen to my daughters? That, I said, with a coldness that surprised even myself, is something you should have thought about before you became a criminal. Mom, please. No, there is no mom for you anymore, Rebecca. You lost that privilege when you decided I was your enemy instead of your mother. Mr. Morales continued handing her documents. The criminal complaint will be formally filed tomorrow morning. The charges include domestic violence, extortion, making threats, theft, and attempted fraud. Depending on how the case proceeds, you could be facing 5 to 15 years in prison. But I didn't mean... It was just that you thought your mother was weak and stupid enough to let herself be robbed and abused without fighting back, Patricia said. You were wrong. Rebecca collapsed onto the sofa, her face in her hands. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered her words. To me, you're already dead. You're just an obstacle between me and what I need. Rebecca, you have one option, I said, feeling that I was completely reclaiming control of my life. You can cooperate fully. Return all the money you stole, sign an agreement where you renounce any claim to my assets, and allow me to see my granddaughters without restriction. If you do that, we might consider not proceeding with the criminal charges. She lifted her head, her eyes filled with desperate hope. You would do that? Or you can keep fighting, in which case I assure you we will proceed with the full force of the law. You will lose everything you have. You will go to jail, and your daughters will grow up knowing their mother is a criminal who abused her own grandmother. Mr. Morales intervened. And just so we're clear, if you agree to cooperate, the agreement includes a clause that if you ever approach your mother with harmful intent again, or if you try to manipulate your daughters against her, all criminal charges will be automatically reactivated. Rebecca was silent for several minutes. I could see her mind working, calculating options, searching for an escape that wasn't there. If I accept the agreement, will I still be able to see my daughters? Your daughters are not your prisoners, Rebecca. But if you want to continue being their mother, you're going to have to learn how to be one for real. Without lies, without manipulation, without using those girls as weapons against other people. And you'll be able to see them? I will see my granddaughters whenever they want to see me, and you will do nothing to stop it. Patricia took another document from her folder. The agreement also states that Olivia and Sophia have the right to maintain a relationship with their grandmother, free from maternal interference. If you try to keep them from her again, you lose custody. Rebecca's face fell completely. She realized she had lost all the power she thought she had over me, over her daughters, over the situation. I need time to think about it. There is no time, Mr. Morales replied. The offer is now or never. I have to be at the DA's office in an hour to file the charges. Either you sign the agreement now, or we'll see you in court. Rebecca looked around my living room as if seeing it for the first time. Her eyes lingered on the family photos hanging on the walls. Pictures of her as a child, her first days of school, her graduation, her daughters as newborns. Photos of a family she had destroyed with her greed and cruelty. If I sign this, does it mean we're not a family anymore? The question hurt more than I expected. Despite everything she had done, she was still the baby I had held in my arms, the child I had nursed when she was sick, the little girl I had sung lullabies to, Rebecca. We stopped being a family the moment you decided I was your enemy. If you ever want to try to rebuild something, it will have to start with respect, with honesty, and with true remorse for all the harm you've caused. I paused, feeling the weight of 4 decades of motherhood. But that will be your decision. I am done chasing you, done begging for your love, done sacrificing my dignity in the hope that you will change. If you want to be my daughter again, you're going to have to earn it. Rebecca took the pen with trembling hands and signed the agreement. Each signature was an admission of guilt, a renunciation of her plan to steal everything I had. When she finished, she stood up from the sofa and walked to the door without looking back. Rebecca? She stopped without turning. The girls can call me whenever they want. My phone will always be available for them. She gave an almost imperceptible nod and left my house. The woman who left was not the same one who had entered. She was a stranger who bore my daughter's name, but had lost any right to be called one. I stood in my living room, surrounded by Patricia and Mr. Morales, feeling for the first time in weeks that I could truly breathe. "How do you feel, Auntie?" "Free," I answered without hesitation. "For the first time in my life, I feel completely free." After Rebecca left, I sat on my favorite sofa for what felt like hours, staring at the documents scattered on my coffee table. The signed agreement, the restraining orders, the medical reports proving my sanity. My whole life was contained in those papers. But for the first time in months, I felt it truly belonged to me. Patricia and Mr. Morales had left after assuring me that all the legal documents would be processed immediately. My niece had hugged me before she left, tears in her eyes. "Aunt B, I'm so proud of you. Not everyone would have the courage to do what you did today. But I didn't feel brave. I felt tired, sad, and strangely empty. I had won the battle, protected my home and my dignity, but I had lost my daughter in the process. Or perhaps, I realized with painful clarity, I had lost my daughter a long time ago and was only just now admitting it. That night, I made my usual dinner, vegetable soup with warm tortillas, but this time, I didn't cook for 4 people out of habit. I cooked exactly the portion I needed, for one person, and for the first time in years, it didn't make me sad. On Friday morning, as I was drinking my cinnamon-spiced coffee in the backyard, my phone rang. My heart leaped, thinking it might be Rebecca. But when I answered, a familiar little voice filled me with joy. "Grandma B? Olivia. My love, how are you, my princess?" "Grandma, Mom told us we can talk to you again. She said you had a very important conversation and that everything is sorted out." I wondered what version of events Rebecca had told the girls, but I decided it didn't matter. The important thing was that I could speak to my granddaughters without restrictions. "I'm so happy to hear your voice, sweetheart. I've missed you so much." "We missed you too, Grandma. Sophia wants to know if we can come over and make cookies with you now." "Of course you can. When do you want to visit?" "Can we come this afternoon? Mom says she can bring us after school." "I'll be waiting for you, my loves. I'll have everything ready to make oatmeal cookies." When I hung up, I sat in my rocking chair, feeling genuine happiness for the first time in weeks. I was going to see my granddaughters. I was going to hug them, hear their laughter in my kitchen, and teach them again the cookie recipe that my grandmother Carmen had taught me when I was Sophia's age. I spent the morning cleaning my house from top to bottom, even though it was already clean. I went to the market to buy the freshest ingredients for the cookies: oats, cinnamon, vanilla, farm-fresh eggs. Mrs. Rodriguez greeted me with a special smile. "Mrs. B, you're looking very well today. More peaceful." "I feel good, Mrs. Rodriguez. Very good. I'm so glad. Your daughter came to the market yesterday, but she looked very different. Very defeated. Have you two sorted things out?" "Yes, we've sorted them out. In the best way possible." At 4 in the afternoon, I heard Rebecca's car pull up in front of my house. My heart raced. I didn't know what to expect from this first encounter after everything that had happened. But when I opened the door, I only saw my 2 granddaughters running toward me. "Grandma B!" Sophia shrieked. throwing herself into my arms with all the force of her 8 years. "Oh, my princess! How I've missed you!" Olivia, more reserved due to her age, approached with a shy but genuine smile. I hugged her too, inhaling the scent of her strawberry shampoo, feeling the warmth of her small body against mine. Rebecca stood by the car, not approaching the door. We looked at each other for a moment, and in her eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen before: genuine shame. She nodded slightly, a silent greeting, and I returned the gesture. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't reconciliation, but it was a mutual acknowledgement that things had changed forever. "I'll pick them up at 7, she said from a distance. "They'll be here," I replied. She left without another word, and I focused on what truly mattered. My granddaughters were back in my home. For the next 3 hours, my kitchen was filled with laughter, flour scattered everywhere, and the delicious aroma of baking cookies. Olivia told me about her middle school classes, her friends, the boy she had a crush on. Sophia showed me the drawings she had made for me during the weeks we couldn't see each other. Pictures of us making cookies, of her in my garden watering the plants, of the whole family together and happy. "Grandma, why did Mom tell us you were sick?" Sophia asked as we decorated the cookies with chocolate chips. The question stung, but I decided to be as honest as an 8-year-old could understand. "Sometimes grown-ups have very complicated problems, my love. Your mom was very worried about some things and thought it was better if we didn't see each other for a while. But you're not sick anymore?" "I was never sick, princess. I was just very sad because I couldn't see you." Olivia, more perceptive for her age, looked at me seriously. "Grandma, did you and Mom have a fight?" We had a very serious conversation about adult things. "But the important thing is that we can be together again now. Was Mom lying when she said you were sick?" The question put me in a difficult position. I didn't want to damage the girls' relationship with their mother, but I didn't want to lie to them either. "Your mom was very confused, sweetheart. Sometimes when adults are very worried, they don't make the best decisions. But the important thing is that she learned that you need to be with me, and I need to be with you." When Rebecca returned at 7 to pick them up, the girls ran to the car carrying a bag full of fresh cookies. This time, Rebecca got out of the car and walked to my door. "Mom," she began, but stopped, as if she didn't know what to say. The girls were very well behaved. We made a lot of cookies. I can see they had a lot of fun. We stood there for a moment, 2 women who had shared 42 years of history, but were now almost strangers. "Rebecca, I want you to know that my granddaughters will always be welcome in this house. Always." "I know, Mom, and I want you to know that what happened, you don't have to say anything right now. Actions speak louder than words." She nodded and walked back to the car where the girls were waiting. "Mom?" Sophia shouted from the window. "Can we come over next weekend?" "Whenever you want, my loves. Whenever you want." That night, as I washed the dishes and wiped the flour from my kitchen counters, I reflected on how much had changed. My house smelled of cookies and happiness again. My granddaughters knew they could count on me. My assets were protected, my dignity was restored, but most importantly, I had regained something I thought I had lost forever: self-respect. For too many years, I had confused love with sacrifice, care with compliance, motherhood with submission. I had believed that being a good mother meant accepting any treatment, forgiving any abuse, giving until I had nothing left. Now I understood that true love includes boundaries, that respect must be mutual, and that no one, not even your own children, has the right to destroy another person's dignity. On Saturday morning, as I was watering my geraniums in the yard, my neighbor Rosa came to the fence. "Mrs. B, you look so different. More, how do I put it? Stronger. I feel stronger, Rosa. Have things been sorted out with your daughter?" "They've been sorted out the only way they could be, with truth and with justice." "I'm so glad. I heard the girls laughing from my house yesterday. It's been a long time since I heard those sounds. I hope you'll be hearing them a lot more often." That afternoon, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years. I went for a walk downtown by myself. I had no obligations, no urgent responsibilities, no specific place to be. I just wanted to walk, see people, feel the sun on my face, and remember what it felt like to be an independent person. I passed through the main plaza, where families were enjoying their weekend. I bought a vanilla ice cream from the same stand where I used to take Rebecca when she was a little girl. I sat on a bench under the shade of a centuries-old cypress tree and watched life go by. For the first time in decades, I wasn't watching the clock, wasn't rushing home to make a meal for someone else, wasn't worrying about the needs or whims of other people. My time was mine, my life was mine, my decisions were mine. When I returned home at dusk, I made myself a cup of chamomile tea and sat in my rocking chair to watch the sky change color. Orange, pink, purple, deep blue. The colors of freedom, I thought. The colors of rebirth. My phone rang. It was Olivia. "Grandma, can we come over early tomorrow? We want to help you water the plants." "Of course, my love. I'll have breakfast ready for you. I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, my princess. More than words can say." That night I slept deeply, without nightmares, without anxiety, without the weight of injustice pressing on my chest. I slept like I hadn't slept in months, holding on to the certainty that I had reclaimed not just my home and my dignity, but something far more valuable, my own life. 3 months later, my life had found a completely new rhythm. It was a Sunday morning in June, and the sun streamed through my kitchen windows, creating golden patterns on the tile floor. I was making red chilaquiles for breakfast, a recipe I had perfected over the years and now cooked only when I truly felt like it, not out of obligation. The girls visited every weekend, sometimes for both days, sometimes just one, depending on their activities and desires. There were no more forced schedules, no more visits out of obligation. When they were with me, it was because they truly wanted to be there, and that difference was like night and day. Olivia had started confiding in me about things she didn't tell her mother. Her first crushes, her problems with friends at school, her dreams of studying veterinary medicine. Sophia had turned my backyard into her personal gardening lab, where she experimented with planting all kinds of seeds and tending to her own little pots. Rebecca was strictly adhering to the agreement we had signed. She had paid back every dollar she stole from me, even though it meant she had to sell her fancy car and move into a smaller apartment. She had also started attending therapy, something Mr. Morales had included as a condition in our agreement. Our interactions were minimal but civil. When she came to drop off or pick up the girls, we would exchange polite greetings and basic information about schedules and activities. There was no intimacy, no deep conversations, but there was no open hostility either. It was as if we were two acquaintances who shared the responsibility of caring for the same children. One day, in early July, as the girls were playing in the yard and I was making agua de Jamaica in the kitchen, Sophia ran in with a worried expression. "Grandma, there's a lady at the door who wants to talk to you. She says she's Mom's mom." My heart stopped. It was my sister Gloria, who hadn't spoken to me since that phone call where she scolded me for not helping Rebecca. For all these months, I had avoided contact with my extended family, partly because I didn't want to deal with judgments and opinions, and partly because I needed time to heal. I went to the door, and there was Gloria, standing on my porch with an expression I couldn't decipher. She looked older than I remembered, with more gray hair and lines around her eyes. "B," she said simply. "Gloria." We stood there for a moment. Two sisters who had shared a childhood but were now almost strangers. "Can I come in? We need to talk. The girls are here." "I know. Patricia told me everything. Everything that really happened." I let her in, and we sat in my living room, on the same sofa where I had confronted Rebecca months before. Gloria looked around as if seeing my house for the first time. "B, I came to apologize." It was not what I expected to hear. "Apologize for what?" "For believing Rebecca without hearing your side. For scolding you when she called me crying. For playing a part in the plan she had to make you look like the villain." Gloria leaned forward, clasping her hands in her lap. "Patricia showed me the recordings, told me everything Rebecca did to you. B, I didn't know. I never imagined my niece was capable of such things." "No one imagined it, Gloria. Not even me. When I think about how I treated you, the things I said, I feel so ashamed. You have been an extraordinary mother, a generous sister, a strong woman, and when you needed family support the most, we abandoned you." Her words hurt, but they also healed me a little. Rebecca was very convincing, Gloria. She managed to manipulate the whole family. That's no excuse. I've known you since you were born. I should have known something was wrong with her story. Just then, Olivia came into the living room. Grandma, who is this lady? This is my sister Gloria, your great-aunt. Gloria, these are my granddaughters, Olivia and Sophia. Gloria smiled, and for the first time since she arrived, her face relaxed. What beautiful girls! You look so much like your grandma when she was little, Bee. You know what my grandma looked like as a little girl? Sophia asked with curiosity. I've known her since she was born. I'm her big sister. The girls were fascinated with Gloria, who began to tell them stories of when we were little, of the mischief we got into, of the house where we grew up. It was comforting to see my granddaughters learning a part of their family history they never knew existed. When the girls went back out to the yard, Gloria and I continued our conversation. Bay, the rest of the family wants to see you. We all feel terrible about how we treated you. Patricia told us the truth, and we all want to apologize. I don't need a group apology, Gloria. What I need is for you all to understand that I'm not the same person I was before. What do you mean? I mean I will no longer sacrifice myself to keep the family peace. I will no longer pretend everything is fine when it's not. I will no longer give more than I receive just because we're family. Gloria nodded slowly. You're right. And I think we all learned a very hard lesson about judging without knowing all the facts. Gloria, you can visit me whenever you want. You can bring your family to meet the girls. But it has to be because you truly want to be here, not out of obligation or pity. I understand perfectly. That afternoon, after Gloria left, the girls bombarded me with questions about my family, about stories they didn't know, about relatives they had never met. I realized that in my effort to protect them from the family drama, I had also deprived them of knowing their history. Grandma, why did you never tell us about Great-Aunt Gloria? Because grown-ups sometimes have complicated problems, my love. But we're fixing those things now. That evening, when Rebecca came to pick up the girls, I noticed something different about her. She looked thinner, more tired, but also more real, as if she had stopped playing a part and finally allowed herself to be vulnerable. Mom, she said after the girls got in the car, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Do you think that one day, that maybe we could? She didn't finish the question, but I understood what she meant. Rebecca, the damage you did to me was very deep. It can't be erased with time or good intentions. If you ever want to try and rebuild something between us, it will have to start with a real change in you, not just in your circumstances. I know. I'm trying to understand why I did the things I did. The therapist says I have serious issues with control and manipulation. And what do you say? I say she's right. And that for the first time in my life, I'm trying to be honest with myself about the kind of person I became. It was the most real conversation we had had in years, maybe decades. Rebecca, I'm not going to chase you to change. I'm not going to beg you to be a better person. That is your responsibility to yourself and to your daughters. But if one day you truly change, if one day you can prove with actions that you deserve respect and trust, then maybe we can talk about starting over. Starting over? As two adults who know each other but have to learn to respect one another. Not as mother and daughter because that relationship is broken, but maybe as two women who share a love for the same children. She nodded, tears in her eyes. That seems fair. Rebecca, there's something else I want you to understand. My granddaughters are going to grow up knowing the truth about what happened between us. I won't poison them against you, but I won't lie to them either. When they're older and they ask questions, they will hear the whole truth. I understand. They will know that their mother was capable of hurting her own grandmother, but they will also know if you were capable of changing and growing. How that story ends is up to you. 2 weeks later, on a particularly hot afternoon in July, I was in my kitchen making lime and chili popsicles, paletas, for the girls when the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Alcantara? Yes, this is she. This is Dr. Sanchez from the psychiatric clinic. Do you remember coming in for a psychological evaluation a few months ago? Of course, doctor. I'm calling because we're organizing a support group for older adults who have been victims of family abuse. Your case was an inspiration to us because it represents a story of empowerment and recovery. Would you be interested in sharing your experience with others who are going through similar situations? The proposal took me by surprise. Speak in public about what happened to me? Exactly. We have many patients who come here feeling completely defeated, convinced that there's no way out of their situation. Your story could give them hope and practical tools to defend themselves. Doctor, I'm not a psychologist or a social worker. You don't need to be. You just need to be what you already are. A woman who refused to be a victim, who fought for her dignity, and who won. That night, as the girls slept at my house after a day full of games and laughter, I thought about Dr. Sanchez's proposal. Could I really help other people by telling my story? Did I have the emotional strength to relive those painful moments over and over again? But then I thought of all the women like me who might be suffering in silence, believing they had no options, that they had to endure the abuse because it was family, women who had confused love with submission, who thought that being good mothers or good daughters meant accepting any treatment. The next day, I called Dr. Sanchez. Doctor, I accept your invitation to participate in the support group. But on one condition. What's that? I want my story to do more than just give hope. I want it to teach people that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, that dignity has no age, and that true love always includes respect. 3 days later, I was standing in front of a group of 15 women and 3 men, all over the age of 50, all with stories similar to mine. There was a 70-year-old woman whose son had swindled her out of her house, a 68-year-old man whose grandchildren psychologically abused him for money, a 55-year-old woman whose daughter emotionally blackmailed her by threatening to withhold access to her grandchildren. When I finished telling my story, the room was completely silent. Then, one by one, these people began to share their own experiences, their fears, their doubts about whether they had the right to defend themselves from their own family members. Mrs. Alcantara, a woman named Carmen, said, "Don't you feel guilty for pressing charges against your daughter?" I felt guilty at first, Carmen. But then I understood that guilt was precisely what my daughter used to control me. Guilt for not being a good mother. Guilt for not sacrificing enough. Guilt for setting boundaries. When I freed myself from that guilt, I freed myself from everything. At the end of the session, 3 people approached me with tears in their eyes, thanking me for showing them that it was possible to fight back and move forward. That night, I came home feeling a deep satisfaction, different from anything I had ever experienced before. It was not the satisfaction of having taken good care of others, but the satisfaction of having used my pain to create something useful, something that could help other people find their own strength. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to have a purpose that was entirely my own.